It'd probably help if I cut my microphone on, so y'all probably ain't hear none of that. Listen, I am Arye the King. This is the Geek Salad Podcast live. Today, we got a very, very special guest. We have Hilton Walls, founder, or one of the founders of BlurredCon. We're going to pick his brain today. We're going to play some geeky this or that, some questions that might get the man canceled. I don't know. The night's still early. If y'all got questions for Hilton, make sure you put them in the chat. And we're going to have a good time tonight, man. I want y'all to talk back to me. Share this live out. Oh, you say you thought it was your phone? No, it wasn't. It was Arye and it being Friday night. You know what I'm saying? Yo, shout out to Review Time Productions. Fire Alley. Shout out to you. I'm probably pronouncing your screen name wrong. But that's what happened when we use special superhero code names instead of our real names. It is what it is. Shout out to Relentless 15. What's going on? I want y'all to talk back to me tonight. That'll be enough, Kendrick. All right, gotta tell Kendrick to chill out sometime. We'll get my partner in crime, G, the bearded one, on here soon. Listen, everybody, we got Geek Salad merch. It's coming soon, probably I would say within the next 1 to 2 weeks. You'll be able to get your own Geek Salad shirt. Shout out to my boy Nick, who got this very, very dope design. He made this dope design. It's like a salad bowl with glasses and it says Geek Salad around. It's, marketing shit. What up, Geeky by Heart? What's going on? How do you pronounce it though? Fairy Alley. I know I'm butchering it. Like, spell it out phonetically for me so I can get it. Dr. Lawana is what more people know me by. Oh, Doc, talk your stuff, sis. That's what I like. That's what I'm talking about, man. We need more of you. Doctors, lawyers, all of that good stuff. What else we got? What's going on this week? DJ Envy in trouble. I don't know. We might get into that. We might not. Depends on how it goes. But I don't like to have my guests wait in. So let me get our guests on today. But I'm going to introduce him anyway. One of the founders of BlurredCon, Mr. Hilton Walls. What's going on, man?
Yeah, how you doing? It's Hilton George, even though
George. Oh, okay. I must have read the DM wrong. George. Hilton George.
Hilton
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Just making sure I have my technicals right because I got my earbuds in, but they're not hearing you, so I'm trying to get that straight. It's active phone.
Oh, that was me. Listen, my Russian, it being Friday and everything, I'm just being excited it's Friday. I ain't got the microphone on, so I'm up here talking. This is all you see. All you saw for like the first 2 minutes of this live is ridiculous. It is what it is, though. We're gonna make it work.
I'm gonna try and do something real quick. So give me about 2 seconds. I'll be right. I'm not going nowhere. I'm just gonna try and get this sound right. So everybody.
Yo, it would be funny if he hit like a Rick Ross. Remember Rick Ross was on the 85 South show? He was like, all right, y'all, I'm gonna be right back. Just got up and left for the middle of the show.
Never came back. Yep. I remember that.
Yo, Ross is a wild dude, bro. What's going on with you, man? Happy Friday.
I'm good, man. I see you wearing that Geek Salad merch, brother.
I see you. You are also wearing that Geek Salad merch, my brother.
That's right, man.
Digital 5. All right. Oh, it got weird.
Brothers, happy and we're smiling and we're colored.
Yo, it's funny because that's that track. That's a Tribe Called Quest. We got a Tribe Called Quest question at the end for you. But yo, welcome to the show, Hilton. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. It's been a long run. Having my first debut here on the show. So I'm honored and happy to talk with you guys. I hear y'all got a lot to celebrate. You got new shirts, which usually only happens in a family reunion for Black people, but for a podcast, it's a real milestone. So yes, congrats on that, and thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Anytime, man. Listen, man. You are half responsible of bringing together blurs of all kinds, shapes and sizes in one area every year, right? So I wanna get like the breakdown of what kind of inspired the moment. I know I read on Wikipedia that MomoCon inspired BlurCon. So can you tell people about MomoCon, and then what was that spark that inspired BlurCon? And also for those out there, what is BlurCon?
Yeah, well, Blurred is Black Nerd, and BlurredCon is the Black Nerd Convention. And as a Blurred and a Black Nerd, for my entire life, was not recruited into this. I was born into it. We basically have found ourselves in this weird nether region where a lot of times our nerdiness, was not accepted by mainstream society, i.e. white people and non-black people. While at the same time, in black spaces, let's just be honest, black people do not have a long history of doing well with that which is deemed weird. And so we had this idea where, there wasn't really a space for us to be. I mean, I didn't have a choice whether or not to be a Blurred. The minute I picked up some dice and played Dungeons and Dragons, the minute I picked up a Fantastic Four comic, the minute I saw Robotech on Harmony Gold, I mean, it was a wrap. I didn't want to be anything else. No, I knew that was going to force me to give up my cool card, forfeit prom, all that stuff. I've seen the movies. I know how it goes. But I was the only one in the nerd space who had to worry about, acceptance both internally and externally as a black person, and therefore I was always conscious of my blackness, in the nerd spaces, which is weird because nerd spaces are where I was the most comfortable, and growing up in the South, as a black person, you are uncomfortable in a lot of places, right? And then, how do you find yourself uncomfortable when you're playing D&D and Yu-Gi-Oh! And all of that, right? So, I come up in this world where I got older, I got cooler, and I kind of strayed off of the blurred path. And, I went to college, I pledged a fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, all the people out there you need to know, the ace coldest. And, I was like, okay, there was no nerd spaces to remind me of where I was from and who I was. I had to kind of keep all my geekiness inside. And around 2012, 2013, I discovered the convention scene. Now, I'd always been into costuming, always going out to, Halloween was my favorite holiday and, all this stuff, but I still wasn't really aware of where cons had evolved into, the frequency and the prolific growth of them and the opportunities to attend beyond New York Comic Con and San Diego Comic Con, so far away, but never in my own backyard. So I got into cosplay, and I dove in, and I was traveling, man. I had a job, I had disposable income, I had time to myself. I was like, oh man, this is it. And I was traveling, man. I was going from New York to Atlanta, any con you could imagine I was hitting. And I ended up at MomoCon. Now, what I didn't tell you is during my years in college, I was what is commonly known in the HBCU scene as a low-budget puff daddy. So I was the guy.
Yo, you got to hold on, real quick. You got
Expand. Expound.
Take that. You got to expound on that, bro. You can't just gloss over it. Why was you the low budget?
Everybody knows the brother in college who always had flyers, who was always doing the after party, always was. Yeah. Somehow he ended up backstage or knew some dude at the club or was, that was me. I was doing homecomings. I was doing fashion shows, comedy shows, step shows. I was all over, man. I mean, North Carolina knew me from, Fayetteville State all the way to UNC Greensboro and A&T. I was that guy. So I had all of this production experience. I've done every kind of event you can imagine. And I was standing, at MomoCon, which is a large anime convention in Atlanta. And if you don't know Atlanta, if you've never been, it is known as what's commonly referred to as a chocolate city. It's a majority black city with a rich history in the African American diaspora of the Exodusters, coming from the South, going up to Chicago and New York, and then turning around and coming right back down and establishing, this city. And so you have a convention there that's drawing 30,000 people, and I'm looking out, and you can see a lot of the convention from any one part. And I was like, look at all these black people here at this convention. You know, they're just around everywhere, more than I would have imagined that there would be at any given convention. And I said to myself, I said, you know, wouldn't it be cool if there was a convention that was, you know, just designated to highlight and showcase Black nerddom, you know, just Black cosplay, Black music, Black art. You know, we've got so much to contribute. Everything we do, everything that we participate in, whether it's our creation or something that we adopt, we bring this amazing dimension to it. And I was just like, that would be so cool to have that community built. And I didn't step back from my own suggestion and say, oh, I'm not going to do that. I hope somebody else picks that up. I got stuff to do. I immediately just kind of took it on and leapt into it full-throated, you know, with no sense of self-preservation, obviously. And said, well, I'm going to create a con. And, you know, you just kind of, and it's 2 years. It's 2 years. This is business now, people. Check it out. You know, when you get a good idea, when you have an idea in your head and you're like, oh, I want to do this thing, a lot of us, first thing we want to do is tell the world. Before we lock down the domain names, before we, you know, copyright the name, before we, you know, get the incorporation and the LLC, before we lock down the dates and the venues and the contracts and you know, the logos and iconography and the websites and all of that stuff, the social media, we out here telling everybody and telling everybody and telling everybody, and then somebody snipes our idea and we get mad, right? And I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So from 2015, late 2014, 2015, I never said the word BlurredCon out loud, and nobody saw the BlurredCon logo until one calendar year before BlurredCon, which was 2016 in the summer, when we started traveling to cons and promoting it. And that was the beginning of the run. In 2017 was our first year, and you know, it's just been growing exponentially ever since. I mean, COVID notwithstanding, and this year was our biggest year yet, and we had a blast. We couldn't ask for more.
Yo, that's a whole bar you gave, man. I hope the people like appreciate that, because if you want a quick way to kill a dream, just tell it to some people who don't got no dreams of their own, and they will shoot it down immediately. I like that. I like that thinking. If you have any questions for Hilton, make sure you put them in the chat. We'll get your questions answered. Just talking about the beginning of BlurredCon, and actually, like you were talking about the business side of it, getting the venue, getting the contracts. What was that process like? Because I'm finding, like me myself, in addition to the podcasting lane, I also do real estate investing, right? And I found like the easiest way or the best way to progress in it is to learn a step, then do a step. Can you talk to that for the people watching who may want to do a convention or something big of their own, how to learn a step and then don't just get stuck in, you know, that knowledge loop?
Yeah, you got to step outside your comfort zone. I was blessed on two fronts. So, you know, my recently deceased business partner and best friend, Hassan, was my first call. You know, we were best friends, and I known him we went to college together, and his thing was investing. He invested in real estate, and he, you know, he knew how to do, you know, copyrights, and, you know, he knew how to do, what do you call it, you know, getting the domain names. He knew a lot of the mechanics around business, and, you know, he wasn't somebody who spent a lot of time in the blurred space. So I knew I would get an objective opinion, because I have flights of fancy. I wake up some mornings talking about, yeah, I'm going to take over Yonkers. Like, you know, I got that ADHD. I'm that dude, and I got to get reeled in. So I said, okay, if there's ever a chance or every time when you want to get reeled in, you get that objective opinion. And so I you know, once he was in, and I knew that the business underpinning had somebody who had that background and knowledge, I felt comfortable going forward on the creative side. And I would advise people who are interested in doing something that's outside of their lane. You know, you may have to take a year or two to just step back and maybe apprentice under somebody, you know, who's doing what you want to do. You know, you take a volunteer position, you know, maybe you just take a shit job position where you're not getting paid all that much just to get exposure. Because you don't want to leap too soon, because there's a lot of business potholes, and most businesses fail. And, we get this impression because there's a lot of pressure for people to get LLC, or why don't you just go in business for yourself, stop working for, this person, that person, just go do your own thing. And I'd be like, look, if you don't have a marketable skill, if you don't have venture capital, there is nothing for you to do in business. You can't just get an LLC and watch the money roll in. You have to have something some seeds you got to throw out there in the field if you want something to grow. So that means for people who are outside of their comfort zone, hey, you got to go find wherever you can get that knowledge. There's a lot of sources online, obviously, for, YouTube videos, tutorials, TED Talks. There's a lot of that you can do. But, find somebody who's in that zone, and that's what I did. There's this event that used to happen called Project Anime, and I found out about it. I dug like Scooby-Doo, Mystery Machine. When I heard, I was like, wait, there's a conference that's attached to a convention that all of the con runners come to for professional development and resource sharing and stuff. And it was just a whisper, and somebody had heard about it but didn't know the name, and they were going to ask around, and I'm like, oh snap, you gotta let me know. And so right before we came out in late 2016 and promoted BlurredCon, I had the opportunity to attend. That cost me like $2,000 because I had to fly out to LA. This was attached to Anime Expo. So you're in LA during Anime Expo. Nothing's cheap. Registration, food, air flight, last minute, all of this. But I found myself in the middle of 150 of the longest running con runners in the anime world. And this is KatsuCon and Otakon. This is Anime Expo. This is Anime NYC. It was on its way up. So all of these people, and I stood up in the middle of the room. There's like 5 black people in there. I stood up in the middle of the room and I was like, look, my name's George. I am here to find out what I don't know that I don't know that I don't know. And I'm about to start a convention, and any advice, any resources, anything that you can share for a first year con is the reason I'm here. And I basically got adopted. Everybody turned their chairs toward me. Like, just imagine a room where all the chairs are facing the stage and people literally taking their chairs and turning them toward me, and it became that kind of a session where just people were following me around and I'm taking notes, and and that's why BlurredCon came off with such a professional polish at the beginning, because we were able to use some of those partnerships and resources and things that we learned, or that I learned at Project Anime, to kind of have a really smooth first year in 2017. And if you're trying to do something, you got to do that. But the most important thing, you got to do something you'll love. You'll never be happy doing something that just makes money. If you just want to make money, go to work. You can make a lot of money working. You do something, anything well, and you can work at UPS and end up making $200,000 a year if you work hard enough and long enough. You could do that if it's just money. But if you are looking for something that feeds your passion, feeds your soul, something that you feel like is something you contribute, you gotta go all in. And at some point your job life and your entrepreneur life are gonna clash. You know what I'm saying? It's just like dating 2 women. One of them waiting for a ring. It's just, you can't give them both.
What you got to do is introduce them to each other, my brother, so we can all have fun.
Yeah, you got about.
Now that I know anything about that.
You got about a year of that, before somebody start feeling like you ain't giving 100% because you're doing this other thing. And there's always that transition. It's always there. And I had to do the same thing. I gave up a very lucrative job in higher ed administration, and I'm making half of what I was making when I left that field. But my blood pressure is lower. I'm happier. My time is my own. My life is my own, and that makes it worth it. Another thing to remember: everybody's not cut out for this. Business isn't for everybody. And the way people sometimes portray it in the media and all that stuff. Yeah, you can make a lot of money. Yeah, there's opportunity out there, but everybody's not built for that kind of risk. Everybody's not built for that kind of a life. Because another thing that happens when you do business, and you two guys know this, I got to do my Denzel point. You two guys know this, is that the sacrifice you make when you're doing your passion, you're doing your business, is that you don't come home from work. You're always working.
That's true.
You can leave a job at 5 o'clock and turn that off get in your car, and not think about that office again until 8:30 the next morning.
Yep.
And you're like, ooh, it's a different person. But when you're doing your own thing, when you're running your own business, you be 3 in the morning talking about, I should send that email. You know, it's always around. You're always doing stuff, you know. And so it has to be something you love, has to be something you're passionate about, has to be something that you have a skill or a commitment or something to be involved in. And that's the lesson that I tell anybody who wants to do something above and beyond in the business world, especially in the nerd space.
Absolutely. Let me just ask a question real quick. Just to piggyback on that, right? Because definitely, I'm learning this in my entrepreneurial pursuits. Like there are some sleepless nights. There are some times wondering how you gonna make A connect to B on this entrepreneurship journey, right? Tell us what it was like that, because you said you left a job, right? Very successful at your job. What was that transition like? Take me to like the first maybe 2 or 3 months after, okay, you're away from the 9 to 5 and now you're fully in business for yourself. What was that transition like?
It was crazy because I did it over COVID. You know, you know, and that was a blessing and a mixed blessing because it's COVID. You know, so I actually, my thing is that it's better. This is gonna sound crazy. It's better to get fired than to quit.
No,
absolutely.
That's a fact.
Absolutely.
Because that's a fact,
especially the benefits. You still get your benefits usually. If you got to be strategic with your leaving the job.
Listen. You've seen too many movies where somebody just throw their shirt down. I've had enough. I'm out. You know, and then like, you know, and that's celebrated. But it's like, you know, if you get fired, yes, it's always horrible. It's always unexpected. It's painful. Like any breakup, you could break up with somebody you hate and it still be painful. Like it's that kind of a thing.
That's
but
a bar.
I got fired the end of January 2020, and COVID kicked in 2.5 weeks after I got fired. So I'm going through the unemployment because I'm maxed out. You know, I was that so high that, you know, the maximum amount of money you can get each week for, you know, unemployment, I was getting it. And it's like, you know, I'm filling out the paperwork. I had gotten maybe 1 or 2 weeks of pay cycle running before COVID kicked in. And then the next week, everything shut down. And then the whole system got crammed and crowded. And people was waiting months and months to get unemployment and all this stuff. And I'm in the system. You in the system, you straight.
You good,
so,
right?
I'm good. I'm like, oh wait, yeah. I just slid in, you know, I did the Indiana Jones slide and got my hat before the door comes down, and I said, well, you know, this is an opportunity, right? I can use this time to, you know, really make that transition because I'm in this incubator. I'm in my house. Everybody's in their house. What else do I have to do? Right? So you just start rejiggering things. You start ramping up operations and all of this stuff. And, you know, then they put the extended the unemployment benefits going from, you know, the winter into the spring. So I was on unemployment all the way up to like the end of August 2020, you know, and this would have been the 4th run of BlurCon 2020. And we had to skip a year, obviously. That was the year we skipped. But I knew that we would have, by the time we got back around, we would have a way that, you know, whatever, you know, masks and, you know, vaccines and all this stuff, that gave me a year to just figure all of that out. And that's when we got the contract with HBO for Lovecraft Country. So we did, all these opportunities are coming, man. So I'm in my house. I'm not chasing nobody down. HBO calls me. And I thought it was a prank call. I was like,
did you hang up? Like when the NFL players get drafted and they just hang up phone?
It was an email that came in, and it was like, it wasn't like this long, drawn-out email. And I was like, so-and-so, such HPOI, whatever. There's some guy who got hired to hand out flyers for HBO's parking authority, something, whatever. And, you know, I'm like, I'll get around to it. But then somebody outside hit me up, and they're like, oh, Hilton, like not even involved with BlurCon, just somebody I know out in LA hit me up. I was like, yo, Hilton, HBO trying to get a hold of you. I'm like, huh? They said, yeah, they've been trying to email you and da da da. And I said, hold on, let me go back and reread this email. And we ended up doing this this big contract with HBO for Lovecraft Country. We did a big interview with the whole cast. You know, we got our interview published and went out before San Diego Comic-Con's virtual interview went out. We went straight from that into Warner Brothers DC Fandom. Then we went straight from that to TNT for Snowpiercer. You know, so we was doing Blackity Black all the way through virtually. I am getting my studio stuff. You know, I was like, oh, this is it. This is during COVID. This is 4 months after I got fired from my job.
Wow.
4 months after I got fired from my job, I'm doing deals with major studios, and I'm like, this God tells you doing the right thing. I'm like, you know, everybody in the house, and we got the studio in the basement, we doing it, and so it was so much happening on that end, and then so much happening on the slamming the brakes on a con that you were promoting up until January or up until March before everything canceled. You had to. Okay, we got to do it for 2021, the 2020 event. We got to still promote that, and so it was a lot going on, Faith. It was a lot happening, and of course, like I said, everything went digital. Everybody's doing this, and we ended up being outside of some of the smaller toy cons down in Florida, which I don't think Florida ever closed. We were like the first convention to come back. Like there was no physical convention that I'm aware of that happened before BlurredCon 2021. And everybody was looking at us like, what y'all gonna do? Are people gonna come? Or the vaccine, you know, deniers gonna light you up? You know, because I'm asking all the other cons. I'm asking Otakon, KatsuCon, I'm asking Anime NYC, I'm asking New York Comic Con, all my people. What y'all gonna do and how y'all gonna? They're like, we waiting on you. I'm like, what y'all waiting on me for? I'm hoping to get some guidance from y'all. Y'all the big dogs. So we came back and we managed to make it work. We drew in somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000-6,000 people in the middle of COVID 2021, and that's how I knew that it was possible not just only to come back but to thrive. You know, even though we had all of this other stuff in external circumstances, because you know when somebody throws that many rocks in that rapid of succession at your house, and your house still stands, you're like, okay, we're standing on some kind of solid ground here. Like this has permanence that we can really count on. Because if a pandemic they're burying people in the streets in Brooklyn, right? And people are still coming out to cons and wanting to be in these social spaces, and we managed to bring them out. I'm like, man, when COVID is over, it's a wrap, you know. So that was it. I mean, I don't even think I left anything out. Like we really, that was the COVID year here in DC right before BlurredCon 2021 and after 2019.
Listen, it's a journey, and we can see it. I want to ask you this though. What are you most proud of? Are you most proud of how involved? Well, are you proud? Well, I'm sorry. Are you more proud of the evolution of Blurred's or Blurred content?
You know, I don't know that Blurred's have. The thing about the Blurred community is that it was always there. It was there before me. It was there during me. It was there before BlurredCon. It's there during, and it'll be there after if there isn't an ever after for BlurredCon. And I think just like any other community, we look for spaces where we can come together and rejuvenate and reconnect and establish ourselves, because we don't always live in the Blurred space. And I knew that the Blurred community would find its own equilibrium, right? You know, this space where we could come together and we can work and have fun. And I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah.
No, we just got the sound effects going.
That's wild. No, but it does. Try muting your audio, and then everybody mute the audio, and then if that does it.
See if I see.
Yeah, now I hear it. Yeah.
I see. Now you hear it. Now you hear it. Wait.
Oh, there it's still.
Yeah.
Oh, say something now?
You?
Yeah, I hear you echoing.
Yeah, it's an echo for me. Oh, y'all talk.
Okay. Gotcha. You still here?
That's what it was. That was the mic. Nope. Wait, no, it wasn't. It's not.
Okay, so it's not this mic. Check it. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stop the live real quick and just restart it.
We'll come back. We'll be back, y'all.
Did it?